It's July and the Houston Cougars are in the game on big time recruits. But how in the game are we talking here?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to a crossover edition of Locked On Cougs and Locked On. I guess this is the portal. I was about to say Brian does a couple shows for us, so Brian is a recruiting expert. I didn't bring you on as Florida State. I think a lot of Houston fans are having fun poking fun at Florida State after Keisean Henderson canceled that visit. But we are going to be talking recruiting with Brian today. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money, but we have more on that fun later. Brian, I usually open these with a random weird food question. And I guess the most random thing I can think of is, have you ever been to Midland, Texas?
I would like to go because I'd like to see that game, the famous high school game out in that area, Mojo Magic, the whole nine. But I've never been. Never been.
Okay, well, I was going to ask where you eat there if you'd been there, but I don't know. We're going to talk about an offensive lineman from there that eats a whole lot, or at least I would assume so based on his size. I want to talk some about offensive line in general. I want to talk some about the skinny guys in the second segment. And at the end, I want to kind of talk about what people can expect in July. First and foremost, peek behind the green curtain here. We are recording on the night of July 1st. Houston missed out on a guy named Rhett Gray, a big offensive lineman who had Houston as final three, selected on Tuesday to go to TCU instead. Probably his loss, though he's from Weatherford, which is up by Fort Worth. Pelolete, Primus. I'm going to get that right if he commits to Houston, I promise. That's your promise for me. He's from Midland, Texas, 6'4", listed 325, big old farm boy. Listed as an interior guy, I thought, too, which was interesting. Watched a little bit of video. Anything. What can you tell us about big guys like Primus here? 6'4", 325, Midland, Texas farm boys.
Well, basically, that area, there's nothing else to do besides sport and be on an oil field. I mean, there ain't nothing else out there, brother. You're avoiding rattlesnakes, playing football, and pumping oil. That's it. I would imagine that football is probably his life because that's just the story. I mean, there's been literal TV shows and movies about that area. It's just Landman, the most recent. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's literally right there. So I would imagine he's a kid that loves it. And Houston, to take the next step, we'll probably talk about this several times during the show. They've got to go way up in linemen in terms of recruiting from the high school ranks. This is a kid that's got P4 offers, Washington, etc. Like, I know he's a West Texas kid, so he's not going to get as much love, and it's just way out of the way. But like Washington's recruiting a kid from West Texas. That caught my attention. That staff's pretty good, and they're a good recruiting staff. So I'm like, I know that would be – but going to Seattle from Midland, I don't know if a kid could survive. That would be about as far apart culturally as you could get. But the Huskies can play. So that caught my attention. Houston recruits, obviously, the entirety of the Lone Star State. But they just need to recruit linemen better. Skill guys down in Houston area, they're going to be fine. They can compete with anybody. But getting the linemen has been my biggest concern for any program trying to make that jump from G5 to P4. And Houston's no exception. Getting this kid, although it won't be sexy if they get him, is arguably more important than some of the other kids we're going to talk about today, whether they're better or not. Because usually these are the kinds of kids that the schools that make the jump don't get.
So Houston has offers out to a couple other offensive linemen. They presently have one tackle committed. Troy Pless is from Colleen Shoemaker. They missed out on Rhett Gray, we mentioned, to open. He ended up committing to TCU. But you stressed it's important to get these high school kids because last January we talked about how Houston brought in 6 offensive linemen, 5 of whom had Power 4 experience, right, that are older guys, a little bit more developed, and we're looking to see a lot of them play on the field this fall. What is the importance of getting some of these high school guys nailed down now as opposed to playing that portal game next January all over again?
Parker, how much do you donate to the Houston football program a year?
Hey, teacher, coach, podcaster. Ain't a whole lot to donate, period, there.
Well, it needs to go up. I can assure you whatever it is, because the portal for offensive linemen is the definition of being robbed. There are guys that are barely more than like co-starters that get $500,000-$600,000 and barely play for a year. And that was in year one. It's gone up. There are guys getting $1 million, give or take, D tackle, even worse sometimes, that it's 7 figures and up. So it's real simple. Unless Houston wants to be a borderline 500 team at best, they got to find a way to get high school linemen because it's not cheap there, but it's nowhere near as bad as the portal because there are very few good offensive linemen that go into the portal. It's real simple. Lineman bond, they go somewhere, they stay there. The elite kids get offered money all the time, even Georgia, Texas money, and they stay. If you miss on high school offensive linemen, you will get your teeth kicked in against the better teams. It's that simple. To give you an example, the Final Four, the playoff, you have 20 starting offensive linemen. Take a wild guess how many of those kids were recruited out of high school to those programs, out of 20.
Oh, I would guess a lot. Texas was in the Big 12 a year ago, so I know they had several. I don't know the other programs as well, but I would imagine Ohio State probably also had a lot because they always kill an offensive line. I'd imagine you're looking at over 3-4. So I don't know off the top of my head, but
19 out of 20.
yeah.
If you do not recruit high school linemen well, again, you will get your teeth kicked in. This isn't something that the Houston staff is unaware of. They know. You need to sign at least 2 tackles in every class. It's hard because in that state, the NIL where y'all live is dumb. So you got kids getting 1.5 and $2 million and stuff. Like Texas Tech might have the most expensive roster in college football this year. Not because it should be. It's just they got a billionaire funding it, literally. So I know you're not going to win every battle. Somehow they got to find a way to win some of those. May have to take a JUCO kid. Still got. It's okay to use the portal if you're Houston, but you got to find a way to circumvent there because that's where the biggest problem will be in building any G5 to P4 program, Houston included. And obviously location, you really can't get much better than where the Cougars are. That's about as good as it gets.
Right. And you've got Jayden Rhodes from West Orange Star. I imagine they can land him. Charlie Ward is a 3-star kid from Walker, Louisiana. Fritz and staff know Louisiana pretty well, and Houston's his low and power 4 offer. So I can see that working out, right? I think the thing that's interesting here is Primus's offer sheet, or his top 3, I should say, is a bigger offer sheet. But his top 3 are Washington, Vanderbilt, and Houston. Again, you cover recruiting and transfer portal and roster construction across college football. That's got to be as unique a top 3 as you've ever seen, right? Those are 3 dramatically different programs, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that as well as dramatically different institutions, like culture, what the private, public, different. Like it is like somebody drew that up for an equation on a math test and tried to get somebody to come up with some weird answer. Vanderbilt recruiting in West Texas. That is not a cultural fit. I can assure you. Washington recruiting in West Texas, way out of the, you know what I mean? Like even Houston, it's a long way from Houston, brother. So that kid had to go somewhere. Maybe he just wanted change. That's the only thing I can figure.
And it does seem like Keisean Henderson is close to him. They have a very common social media back and forth fairly frequently. So I want to talk some more in the second segment, actually, about other kids, frankly, from closer to the city of Houston that Keisean is also close with. The skinny guys. We mentioned the offensive tackles might not be quite as sexy. I want to talk some about those sexier folks in just a second. But first, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Monarch Money. And listen, if you're ever wish managing money felt a little bit easier, Monarch Money can help make sure that it is, whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, whatever the case is. Monarch Money helps put you in the driver's seat. It's like having a personal CFO, full control over your finances, which maybe we need to be sending more to the University of Houston, and you can help orchestrate and organize that with Monarch Money. More than just a budgeting app, helps you manage all your financial things in one place and start building real wealth. Again, teacher, coach, podcaster, all those things. My wife's saying it's all one spot, one dashboard, one easy to operate place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first full year. Bring it back on Brian. So now, Brian, I do want to ask you about the skinny guys because you use the word sexy, so I'm going to keep using it. They're also the ones, though, that Keisean Henderson, five-star quarterback from the University of Houston, that's really trying to help turn this program around. We've talked about him before. He is really, really close to some of these guys. Uh, I think my favorite in the class might be Paris Melvin because of just how shifty he is. That's a fun style of football to watch. David Gross is a guy from just, I guess, up the road in Frisco, Texas. So the other side of DFW Metroplex, but he's a guy that has got the social media connection with Keisean as well. And then Jayden Warren came on the same recruiting weekend as Keisean when he had shut down his recruitment elsewhere. I'm going to throw the ball into your court because I know that you follow this at a national level. Who is the big difference maker? What are the differences you see between these guys? How would you look at this trio of guys that Keisean is really pushing for?
Melvin's an exciting player because he could be a safety, a slot receiver, a corner, running back. He's an all-around player. Definitely going to be a return guy. Like, he's a guy that could return kicks at Texas or Florida, or USC. Like, he's an elite athlete. And you're right. He's fun to watch. His stop and start ability, holy moly. Plays at Cy Falls, if I remember right, on the northwest side of
Cy Springs.
Cy Springs. He's just an electric player. I don't know where they're going to play him if he goes to Houston, but I would move him around. He's a guy that is not the biggest dude, 5'11", 175-ish, I guess, but nobody can get a hand on him. And he is pretty physical for his size. I just think he's a national recruit. He reminds me of some of the receivers that Steve Spurrier had at Florida that were just super twitchy, like that kind of guy. And he put him in the backfield, run reverse, do all kinds of stuff. He's that guy. As for the other guys you're talking about, Gross, like, he's played receiver, running back. He's done all kinds of different things. Florida really wants him. Like, I know Florida thought they were going to get him. I don't know like where that stands now. That's been a few weeks ago, but he's a national recruit. When was the last time Houston got a national recruit from the DFW? Not like a guy, but like a national recruit. I don't know if they have in the last 20 years.
A five-star like Gross, I can't think of one on the top of my head.
He's a top 100 recruit by any measurement. So them recruiting against the likes of like Texas A&M, Florida, those kinds of programs is a good sign. Secondarily, he can play multiple spots. I'm not saying he's as athletic as Keisean, but he ain't far from it. He's super athlete. I play him at running back, play him at safety, play him at receiver, whatever. Now, the last kid, like, his track times are just dumb. They're dumb.
I didn't think it was right. I thought there was a typo when I saw he went 10-1 the 100 as a junior, Brian.
Yeah, like, if you're running sub 10.5 before you're about the point where you're able to drive a car, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Like, he's ridiculous. But Iowa Colony, is that the name of the program? Like, I wasn't really familiar with it.
It's just outside the Houston area.
Right.
And frankly, when they've had 2- and 3-star recruits, Houston's hit there before. It's the fact that this guy is the athlete that he is, I think, is what makes it different. Well,
Notre Dame and some other big name schools came in on him late. I don't know how that happens. Like, kid runs sub 10.3. I don't know how whatever, but the program is south of Houston. It's not like a mainstay, but still, somebody's got to take a chance on sub 10.3. That's how I look at it. Call me crazy. I was told that he kind of stuck with the schools that were with him early on. So Notre Dame and other schools he jettisoned, but like, he's not a route runner yet. But if Warren figures out route running, he could be a top 10 pick in the draft. Like, his speed is dumb. Like, he's a kid that I question why he's playing football.
So it's interesting because it's like Houston also has Carl Lewis coaching the track program. So you're like, can you push that angle almost?
Well, I mean, like, seriously, like, put up the football cleats, just put on the track spikes, and somebody will sign you. If you're sub 10 already.
At 195 pounds.
That's what I mean. It's not some 5'9", 170 kid. This kid is 6'1", 2, close to 200. And I'm like, watching him run, his stride is insane. If he gets to the point where he's comfortable and it learns routes, like truly runs routes, I'm not saying he's got to be Jerry Rice, but if he's just efficient at it, even just average, he could be the leader in the Big 12 in receiving yardage at average. Just on that. If he gets really good at it, he could be a national, like, just treasure. Like, he could be a Hall of Fame player.
Well, even just at this point in his career running go routes, right? Keep up with him. He's taking the top off, you know?
If you don't get hands on, it's over. You got to redirect him or it's over.
So if Houston were to somehow land all three, and I think we're gonna get to in a second how that's probably not the case and how this all shakes out. Is Keisean Henderson the best recruiter in the country though, if they pulled that off? Because he's the one pushing for each of these. He's like, come play with me. That's his biggest sales pitch right now.
I would say that's important, but it's still the program and the guys you're building relationships with on the staff. Like, there are a lot of kids that do that. And Keyshawn's got a lot of pull. He's a very personable kid. I've talked about him positively on your show before. Easy guy to get along with. But you got to believe in that program because it's Houston. No offense. Like, they just came out of G5. Some of these kids can go to the SEC. So first things first, Houston has completely changed their trajectory in recruiting. Like, completely. Part of it's Keisean, but they're in a Power 4 league now. That matters. And they'd get a chance to stay in state. That is a very nice combination. Then you throw Keisean on top as the cherry. You got yourself a pretty good banana split right there. You got everything that you need. I would love to see Houston become quote unquote viable. I was talking to somebody, Bud Elliott from 24/7 CBS Sports the other day. We were at Future 50. And I said, dude, I can't wait for you guys to do your podcasts on the Big 12 because there's like 13 quarterbacks that have experience and stuff. It's insane. And it's always had good skill talent. But like now more of it's seemingly more viable to stay home. Baylor's got money. SMU, I know it's not a league, but all the northern Texas schools do. So I'm just going to call you out again. We got to make sure that you're donating enough for NIL in Houston because right now they're the one I'm concerned about the most inside the state of Texas. If you're going to get some of these kids, they got to find some money. That's going to be the key. And keep them too, not sign them. Keep them.
Keep them. And I think keep them, that's the next step, right? Once they start committing, we start talking about that part. And to be fair, I think right now we're looking at with Keisean. We shut down his stuff and all that. I think the biggest thing I've heard is when a kid commits to Houston, you talk about the money with things. They're like, hey, I'm from Iowa Colony. I'm from Cy Springs. I'm from nearby. The money was comparable and I'm at home. Is that a frequent thing or is that just something you say after you commit because you're going to talk about it after like how much of that's just like coach speak for lack of a better phrase or like a real thing you think happened?
Probably a little of both. Like they probably give Keisean and other recruits things to say because every staff does. Heck, I've got guys that work on staffs at different schools tell me to like rank their kids higher or talk about their kids. Everything is political. 100%. It is what it is. These guys are trying to make money. They get money for signing certain levels of recruits. All that stuff is real. Bonuses and stuff, it's real. But to that end, Keisean is the one I would follow because I can just tell you from being around him a few times, he lets it rip. He's a nice guy. What he says, I would still think is the most genuine of anything that's going on. I never trust coaches. No offense. Some of them are my friends, but I would tell them to their face, I do not trust you when you're in front of a microphone. Zero. It's all political bullcrap. So I'll take what he says about the program. And again, you brought up a good point, Parker. They're getting kids on campus they didn't normally get. We had this conversation 2 years ago. We ain't talking about nobody running a 10-1-8 or whatever. That ain't happening. So now you're like the running back, no, like, or whatever he ends up playing. That kid can play at Texas or LSU. I'm 100% convinced of that. So
I'm intrigued. Houston's in his top four. Paris Melvin, you mentioned. Ole Miss is in his top four. Houston and Kiffin don't compete a whole lot in recruits very often. And call me crazy. I kind of think it's a good sign that it's gotten this far. Obviously, you want to land him too, but just to be in the same top four. I mean, if you had Ole Miss, most people get Ole Miss and that kind of stuff in the higher end of the SEC, especially offensive guys of their offer sheet. They're not putting Houston in the top three after that. That seems to have shifted some.
Well, to put it in perspective, how much Ole Miss has moved up the ladder, they just got a top defensive lineman from Duncanville. Like Ole Miss, like they changed their program too. So if you're recruiting with the Rebels or A&M or LSU, any of those schools, look, that is elite recruiting. And I did not see that coming. By the way, I'm rooting for Houston because it's more fun when we got teams like this that are upstart. You know what I mean? Like last year, I'm sure you didn't like it necessarily, but like Arizona State was picked 16th. One of the reasons is they did well in the portal, but some of their high school kids that they took, they hit on. They took some kids that other schools didn't, even some from Texas. Like, you can win with Texas 3-star talent pretty quickly, and you can also win when you just combine them with a few guys. And that Scatterby guy was good for them too, by the way. Nice transfer there out of Sacramento. That's one of the wildest transfers in the history of college athletics. But why not Houston sometime here in the near future? They've got a good coach. Keisean may be the answer at quarterback, but it's going to take a team effort because football is still a team sport. Getting some of these kids, they could be in the mix to win a Big 12 title. Why not Houston?
Well, and so let's talk about winning the Big 12 title. Doesn't happen overnight. But the month of July is really important. The kids take their visits in June. They make their decisions in July. They go play for their senior high school in the fall. It's typically how these high-end recruits do things. Walk us through what this month looks like. I told you in pre-pod, like, hey, kudos to you, man. I don't know when you're sleeping right now. What does July look like when you're looking at these guys that are kind of in the top tier of talent? Because bluntly, Houston just kind of got here.
Well, this is literally the busiest week of the year for commitments through July 12th. That's a week from Saturday. All the kids pretty much announced. July 4th, a ton of them, obviously. That kind of makes sense through the weekend. All the kids are done with their visits on like the 22nd or 23rd, what it was of June. And then now we're in a dead period. So everybody, you can still call kids and all that kind of stuff. You can't visit and they can't visit you. There's no face-to-face. So that's all done. Not that somebody's not cheating somewhere, because I know how that works, but that's another story. The point is still the same. It's decision time. These kids have been wined and dined. They've taken their trips. They're going to make their announcements. And like literally from the middle of this week through the end of next week, there will be about 200 to 300 kids, P4, make decisions. Some are flipping. Some are making their first decisions. A few will back off and make different, like Derek Cooper's a big-time running back from South Florida. He's pushing his decision back. But about 98% of the kids that matter will be done by July 15th. Like recruiting just comes to a very fast halt, but it's everything at once. It's crazy. And you can't cover it all. You just kind of have to absorb what you can.
And I guess I find that interesting, Brian, because you mentioned, coaches. It's interesting because in the college football programs themselves, July is kind of a, hey, go lift some weights and be in shape, take a break, recharge your body. We got to start work at the 28th or whatever the end of the month is, right? What's the why does this all happen at one time when the coaches and the football, they're not practicing or anything?
Because this is the way they've set it up now to give college coaches more free time. I'll just be very blunt and short here. The college game is losing a lot of coaches because they don't dislike NIL and the transfer portal. They despise its existence. It's terrible for their lives. It is awful for their futures. Their wives hate them. They don't see their families. Their recruiting calendar was too long. Everything was bad. They're not going to say it publicly, but a lot of the stuff that's happened is to try to keep as many coaches at the college level as possible and keep them from going somewhere else or just retiring. A lot of coaches flat out retired over NIL. And we can have that argument all you want, blah, blah, blah. Coaches don't want their kids getting stolen. They don't want to deal with it. They want kids there because they want to play football, all that stuff. That's why it's the way it is. In this month of July, the kids are lifting and stuff. And the coaches, they're still recruiting like underclassmen, but there's no face-to-face. So they can actually be home. The NFL job's a billion times better because you don't travel. Recruiting is the problem at the college level, and they at least tried to shorten it a little bit.
It's really crazy, and I don't know how many of my listeners understand the shift in the last half decade or so, but
it's insane.
Pro coaches have a lot more free time. It's weird to say because it's still not that many it's not that much free time relative to like your typical 9 to 5. It's a lot more free time than a college coach does in a year, in a full 365 days.
And you're in your same building with the same guys every day. Recruiting is 365 days a year. And it's not one class either. You're recruiting kids going into their sophomore year. Their staff's back offices, Houston included, they'll have 15, 20 people in some capacity, in addition to coaches. So it's just overwhelming because if your rival is putting more effort into it, It's not going to go well. That's just the name
This,
of the game.
this is the last thing I want to talk about because I think this is kind of the bow. Is I'm sure if Houston manages to land all the kids we talk about today, I mean that's worth another conversation because that's really a like big moment for the program, and there's a chance that these things happen. We're not just talking about them for no reason, right? But theoretically, this all slows down to a halt for the class 2026 on, I think you said July 15th will be the kind of when it slows down a lot. When does 2027 pick up? The 16th?
We're already full bore. What are you talking about?
2028? I guess my thought there is like, it's not like the recruiting stops, like you said, on July 16th. First of all, you got to keep your kids. You don't want them to flip before signing day. But do you start with 2026s on the 16th? Do you go back and kind of talk back to your 27s and 28s? What's the thought process there?
That stuff's already started. Most of these teams have had elite camps. Houston probably had one as well, where they try to get the top players on campus, meet and greet. Some of them will compete against the older players. They'll get opinions from the older players that are committed to your program, like a Keisean. Hey, can this kid fit in our program? You want to see all that stuff. That's already started. And it's random too. If Houston doesn't have a 27 commit yet, they'll probably get one by early September, would be my guess. June 15th is when you could start calling juniors, kids that are going into their junior year. I was just at Future 50 in Bradenton, Florida at IMG Academy. Top guys from all across the country, LA, Virginia, wherever, came down, and every one of them's got like 20 plus P4 offers. Some of them can't drive a car yet. It's just the top player in the country, arguably, is a kid from Kingwood. So it's just there's so many different players from different places getting recruited earlier and early now. You don't really transition. You're recruiting kids that are going to be sophomores, juniors, and seniors year round.
I should point out Houston does have a verbal commit from Aiden Starling from Iowa Colony, another 3-star receiver from Iowa Colony. We mentioned them earlier. He is the kind of guy, though, that if he had a big junior season this season, could have a bunch of offers. I say verbal commitment, not that anything is anything other than verbal right now, but it's a long process between here and there. Brian, obviously, if Houston lands 3 different receiver/athletes of 4 stars or higher, and offensive line that's also a 4-star, I'm sure we will talk again because that seems like a monumentous kind of thing. But in the meantime, in all this chaos, you're putting out a ton of content with Locked On. What are you up to? Where can people find all that stuff?
Well, right now it's just trying to keep up with commitments. I do a show that I call the Recruiting Blitz just about every day. Who committed? What commitment dates we got? What's next? Like who's trending? Just as an example, Georgia got 9 commitments in 10 days. That is the definition of a recruiting. 5 defensive linemen. It's just insane.
Did we ask what kind of car they drive? Or are we allowed to ask that?
Oh, I can get you all the details you want. They don't care.
How fast does that car go?
Very fast in Athens. Very fast. But I mean, that's besides that, it's just certain schools go on these runs and they set up the commitment dates and everything. And we get it. We get a lot of information on the backside and media. We have to let the kids announce, but we kind of know where they're going most of the time. So a few of the kids right now getting ready to announce, though, some of the Houston kids, I don't know where they're going. They may not know where they're going when they get ready to walk up to the podium. That's not out of the question either. So we have a lot of fun on the Portal podcast, just talking all kinds of things recruiting. And we'll flip it back to the portal as we get closer to the end of the college football season.
Thanks again, Brian. I know that it's a chaotic time, but sat down and talked some Cougs. And the folks at home probably don't know, I didn't have to make you do a whole lot of extra homework this time. You kind of knew some of these names. That's exciting, right?
It's much better than recruiting the 0-star recruits. I appreciate that.
For Brian's sake, we do too. It's nice when they're good at football. I'll promise that. All right. Thank you again, Brian. Thanks you at home for listening and making us your first listen of the day. Appreciate you first listen each and every year at Locked On Cougs and the Portal Podcast. Your team or your recruits every day. Go Cougs. I don't know what you say for go Portal. Go the whole 2026.
I don't have anything, brother.